Okay, good afternoon. Okay, so this will be the sample project, no? Sample of what we'll do today. I think we can finish this within today, man. Very, very quick since most of the scripting we kind of did already sa previous lecture. Most of this will be just discussing the 3D environment, putting things inside the 3D environment, and then try running some scripts. Okay. So for this one, similar ang controls sa capsule lecture last time, 2D. So if you press A and D, the car just turns around, right? Don't worry about realism. This is just to provide example for player inputs. Okay, so if I press W and S, it goes forward or backward. Then I can bump into some crates, right? So the physics for this, we don't really have to worry about the physics for this. It's Unity doing it. Okay. We'll also be moving the camera along. Now, if you notice, the camera is being moved along with the car, and then we can implement some moving obstacles, etc. Something like this. Okay. No real goal. Again, no real goal for this exercise for now. But we want to. What we want is to just um, okay. uh, do player input with 3D na environment. Okay. Sige, I'll start the other project first. Yeah. So if you haven't downloaded the Unity assets yet from lecture 1.1 or lesson 1.1, please download and dapat mag-match, please match the version. There's a version sa right side of the screen should match with your editor version because by default that is 6 Unity 6, but the one I've downloaded here is 2022.3. Sa labs it's also 2022.3. I think most of the computers sa labs already has those assets, are sa desktop. But anyway, so here is, oh, sorry. Uh, so blank siya. This is a new project, 3D project. This is completely blank yet. We don't have anything here. So we just have the sample scene, main camera, directional light. First thing we'll have to do is we have to import the assets that we've downloaded. I've downloaded it before already, so I'll just go to importing the assets. We could go to assets, so assets tab right there, and import package because it was packaged na siya the whole assets thing. So we could click on custom package, and well, I've already traversed. You can traverse your file directory to wherever you downloaded your starter files. But essentially, you would just open it, and then there will be a window where you can select which assets you want to import. There is a bit of a warning here where file exists in project but with different GUID. You could just ignore that if you're just using the same version because there won't be too much of a problem if that's the case. But anyway, we'll be needing a lot. Well, most of these. Tapos there's no real danger if we don't import everything. No. So I'll just import everything here. Naka-click everything is checked. Just click on import. It will take a bit, but there, it's done. So it's importing. If you look at your assets folder, it's under here, sa course library. You would also have another scene, prototype 1, in your scenes folder. What we'll do here is we'll drag prototype 1 to the inspector. Okay? So we now have a scene here. So I'll go back to scene view. So we have two scenes in our hierarchy, right? We have to just remove the first scene so we could just focus on the first scene. To just check everything, no, just check if everything's fine. I could just click on play, and if it plays, then there's no problem. So currently it looks like that. The game just looks like that. We have a camera, it's pointing to a road, and then there is a background of mountains and sky view. Okay, go out of play mode. So if you look around, now you can change your view with right click like so, or you can pan your view with the middle mouse button, right? And I think yeah, or you could drag it around with Alt plus middle mouse button as well. So yeah, you're free to explore this, but essentially we have a road here, one road. We have the sky dome, which is one big game object. This is just for the background, and we have a mountain skybox. We don't have to touch anything. If you zoom in real far, you'll see that it's just two big domes that like intersect, and then we have our road. We have our road here, right? We have a road at the middle. Okay. What I'd like to do usually is from perspective view, I go orthographic and then go to something like top view just to have a focus where we want to put our objects. Okay. So the very first element we'll do, right, was the car. That was the car for the player, right? So you can go to assets. Um, and then it's under course library. So you could explore these assets, and there are a lot. Sa ground, you have the ground road. These are all prefabs, prefabricated objects. So there are already properties here. Some parts like colliders are already set for these prefabs. If we want to look at vehicles, so we have multiple choices here. So we have the tank, we could have the tank, we could have the bus, the car, the truck. The truck is the one sa example earlier. No? So we can change our view here. We could maybe change from perspective or orthographic, depending on which one you're comfortable with, right? And we could just click and drag whatever vehicle we want or we like here. So for example, now for this case, let's do it a little differently. Let's choose the blue car. So it's just as simple as dragging the prefab onto the scene view, right? Something like this. So I'll put it somewhere here, the middle of the road. And if you see, this car already has a collider. If you see the green lines, it's the collider. If you look at this here, already has the collider. So this is the game object now. This is the collider. Okay, my mesh collider. We don't have to worry about the colliders. Um, so for now, if we click on play view, right? Click on play view. Yeah, it's just that. Nothing happens yet because we didn't do any scripting whatsoever for now. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. So let's go back to the script that we did before. Wait lang. Let me check. Where did I put it? So sa previous lecture, we did assets under scripts. Let's review this now. Caps of behavior previously, because we'll be sort of reusing this um, for um, for our car. So essentially, the controls are the same. We have the vertical axis, horizontal axis, and then we have a translation, right, and rotation, depending on the axis that we use. Um, yeah, so far, let's go back to this. So, if we want the car to go forward, you could manually do it to scene view. So like this. So, and we could observe which axis changes. So in this case, if it's going forward, we can see that the Z here is increasing. If it goes backward, Z is decreasing. If we want to rotate, right? Let's go to rotate. We want to rotate it in this axis. So if you look at the rotation, the axis changes. It is the y-axis. So if it's going to the right, the y rotation changes positively. If it's going to the left, the rotation changes negatively. Okay, so that's sort of like the basis we'll have for this cars movement. Okay, so let's make it move, no? With a script. So let's create, since there is no scripts folder here yet, I'll just create another scripts folder here. Under scripts folder, I'll create a C sharp script. I'll say this is car movement. Like so. Uh, Also, to keep things organized, instead of vehicle car blue here, game object, I'll label this. You can rename the game object as well. I'll say player, just to indicate that it is the player. Okay, and then we could just add this script, car movement, to our player, the vehicle. Okay, and then we'll edit the script. So I'll double click on this. So essentially what we'll do, or what we want to do here, is sort of the same as our capsule before. So we could just copy parts of the code from our capsule. We want a forward speed and a turn speed. So we'll put it here, okay, as serialized field, so it is visible to the inspector. And then in the update, we could copy this, but we'll change a few axes of rotation and for the translation as well. So we'll keep this, the vertical input and the horizontal input. It is from the input manager, no? Get axis, vertical and horizontal. For the vertical movement, however, so this is forward speed times time dot delta time. Right. Okay. Times time dot delta time times the vertical input, right? And then vector 3 dot up. However, vector 3 dot up, if we look at it here, it's 0, 1, 0. This is going up in the y-axis. It's not really what we want because when we go forwards, Carta, now if we click on the car, okay, we click on the car. If we want to make it go forward, it's actually the z-axis that needs to change. So instead of 0, 1, 0, we actually want to change z-axis, so dapat 0, 0, 1. The shorthand for this is vector 3. So z-axis is usually forward because it's like moving into the screen, right? So we could change this to forward there. And if you check the shorthand for this, it's 0, 0, 1. So similar with our capsule, we have the forward speed, which we set as a variable. Time that delta time to make it not dependent on your frame rate. Vertical input is whether it is positive or negative, and then vector 3 forward because we are moving in the z direction of the car. Okay, similar with turn speed. So let's look at this formula. Okay, uh, okay. So instead of vector 3 that forward here, so z-axis na siya last time, no? If we look at the rotation of this car, rotate, it's actually going to rotate on the y-axis. So y-axis is up or down. So in this case, we'll select up. Instead of vector 3 forward here, we do vector 3 that up. That's 0, 1, 0. So that's the y-axis rotation, positive rotation. And in this case, we don't really need the -1 here. We did this before because the rotation on the z-axis, if we click on or if we input A is actually negative. But for the z-axis rotation last time, it's actually going positive if we go counterclockwise, right? So that's why we did a -1 or an invert. For this, we could just remove that. So we are sure that if we're pressing A, right? A is negative. It revolves counterclockwise. If we check with our car here, okay? If we go counterclockwise, that is negative. So y-axis rotation. If we go clockwise, that is positive. So yeah, we don't have to invert that. Okay. So we just have to then translate, right? And rotate. Okay. Gets ba? On things we changed. Okay, not that bad. So now we have forward speed of 10, turn speed of 100. So let's check, no, how it plays. Our camera here is just stay put lang siya. But if I press W, there it moves forward. If I press S, it moves backward. Okay? If I go D and A, it rotates like so. Okay? Not really a rotation of a real car, but just for example. If we go to the scene view, right? This also applies. Say I'll separate game view from scene view. So we could actually drive the car around. We click on game view here. So we could drive the car around, no? Like so. Currently, this does not have any rigid body, right? So if we go outside of the road, float lang siya, right? We didn't put any rigid bodies in this, so it's not affected by gravity. So it's just floating around, right? So the road is just a suggestion. Okay. So there, we have our car movement, but currently our camera is stuck in this position, right? We want our camera to follow our car. As with the previous example, it's just at the back of the car, right? Okay, so we could reposition our camera. So I'll merge game view here again. We could reposition our camera, right? So camera is here currently. What we want to do is there's also a preview of the camera here if you look at if you click on the camera, right? What we want to do is we want to make it so that it is facing the car, no, not facing the car, from the back of the car and then facing the road. So you could just reposition it manually. I like to reposition it with the axis here, but you could also just freehand the position of this. Okay, but I want it to be a bit more precise, so I do it with the axis here. And I want to face it that way, so we could rotate it the y-axis. So probably y0, right? So now it's at the back of the car. Maybe I'll position my x axis or position x with 0 and y, well, a little bit more above, something like that, and then I'll tilt it a little downwards. That is x-axis rotation. There, something around that would be nice, or maybe a little backwards. Then maybe around 15, yeah, something like that. So you can tweak the position of the camera like so. Now, if we press on play, okay? If we press on play, now the camera is at the back of our car. But if we go forward with our car, camera doesn't follow, it just stays there. So we need to add a behavior for our camera as well. So it follows our car or our player. Okay? There. So currently it's like that. Okay. So for our camera, the script we want for a camera is that it has an external game object that it wants to follow. For us to provide an input for that, we could serialize a field that accepts a game object and then follow that game object, right? We supply it from the inspector and then code will follow it there. Okay? But if we really think about it, what do we want out of the game object? It is just the position of the game object, right? We don't really need the other aspects of the game object. And if we're talking about position, rotation, and scale of a game object, that is just the transform component. So instead of taking the whole game object, we could just take the transform of the game object. Now we could do that with script. So I'll make another script here, create C# script. I'll name this camera movement. Okay. And then I will put it in our main camera. Okay. For camera, I'll go outside of game mode for now. Main camera, I could just add here camera movement. It's a script. Okay. So for our camera movement script, we want a variable that will be a reference to the game object that we want to follow. To be more precise, to the transform component of the game object that we want to follow. So we could serialize a field here. Private. So instead of, we can use game object, right? Game object and then player. And then later we could do game object dot get component, get game object dot get uh, ah, we do something like player that get component, and inside this the component transform, right? So it's taking the transform, and then we get the position from here, something like that. But this is a bit of a hassle because we have to get the component every time. So instead of game object here, we could just transform this, or we could just change this to what we actually want, which is a transform. Okay, transform, and then I'll say player. Yeah, we could just say player there. Okay, and then we want to change, no? We want to change the position of our camera relative sa position sang aton player. So in that case, we can say transform. When we say transform here, small letter t, that is the transform of the game object itself. In this case, we are attaching it to the camera, so that is the transform of our camera. Dot position is the XYZ na position. We could say that this is equal to the player's position. So wherever our player is, we will take our camera there. Okay? So let's see what happens if we do that. Okay. Very first thing we need to do before we do that, before so we can avoid null errors, is we go to our main camera since we have a serialized field here. So if you see now, it is asking for a transform, but our game object is a game object. But if we drag our player here from the hierarchy, right, we drag it to the field, whether it needs transform, it will automatically sort of get that transform component from the game object. So you don't have to parse it manually. So yeah, indicate na lang siya as transform. So player, pero naka parenthesis siya, transform, meaning we're just getting the transform of our player. We click on play. There, it's actually under our car, right? So if we go to our scene view, it is the same position as our car. Okay. So if we move around the game view, it looks like it's moving around, but yeah, it does move around, but your camera follows. It's under the trunk of our car. So that's not what we want. We want our camera to be sort of above our car. So we need to offset it a bit. So whenever that we have a position of our object, then there's an offset so we can para visible siya, right? So we can do an offset, right? So for this, you can calculate this manually. You don't have to be super precise about it, right? We can check our player's transform. So X is, we could zero this out para centered. Y is currently 0 for our player, and our Z here is at -3. Let's just make it a whole number -3 for now. So that's the position of our player. The position of our camera currently here is Y is at 5.7. Maybe we could push it to 6 for a whole number, right? And then our Z here is at -12.29. Let's make it -12 for a whole number again. So that with this, we can sort of calculate the offset that we need. So with Y relative to our player's Y is 0. So we need to add 6, right? 6 here. And for the Z, our camera is at -12, our player is at -3, so the offset is around -9. Yeah, so -9 kita. Okay, we'll go back to the script. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll create another variable here, and I'll instead of transform, I'll make a vector 3, and this is the offset. Okay. So if we look, I'll make it vector 3 dot 0 for now. Initial value na lang is 0, 0, 0. We go back to the script or to Unity. If we look at our camera, then my 3 values here for the offset. Again, our Y offset was around 6, right? And then our Z offset is around -9. Okay, -9 siya at the back of our car, right? So then, instead of player position here, we'll do player position plus the offset. Okay? Because position is just vector 3 na siya, XYZ. So yeah, every time we move, right, we take the position of the player and then we add the offset, which is, ha? What? Anong offset? Okay. Sorry. Offset. Off. I. Sorry. Offset. There you go. Okay, so then we add the offset. So meaning that's plus 6 sa y-axis and then minus 9 sa z-axis, right? Okay, so let's look at how that goes when we move into our script or we move into our Unity game view. So I'll click on play. Oh, did I? I did not. So 6, -9. I changed its name. Okay, so now whenever we move, the camera also moves behind us, like so. Okay, so we go to off-road there. It also follows that. Follows. But if you notice, not sure if you notice this, but it feels a little jittery, right? It's shaky siya. I don't know. Can you see it? Medyo shaky siya, right? This is because update. If you remember, the update function is called once every frame. And there is no telling which update method or update function will be called first. So sometimes the update function of the camera is called first before the car. So meaning though it goes like car goes forward and then sometimes camera moves forward. Sometimes camera stays put, then car moves forward. So that's why there is a bit of jitter in the motion. To fix this, instead of update, we will call, actually, we'll change this to late update. Late update is another method from Mono Behavior, no, which is called after the update na method. So now, sa car, we move it every time update, right? New frame. Now, late update is called right after that. So we ensure that we move our car first, then we move our camera. Okay? Okay, going to there. Smoother na siya, right? Yeah. So there's our game, kind of, sort of. If we want to put obstacles in the scene, right? I'll go to top view for now. I could put a few more assets here. So let's go to course library. There are obstacles here now. You could have crates, barrels, etc., etc. You can just drag it here into the scene, right? And then maybe I'll make it what's that? -6, around -8, like so. For things like this, I like to go to orthographic view para top down each without the warping of the perspective, right? And then if you want to make more obstacles, you can just clone this or duplicate this object. If you click on the object and then do Control D, that is duplicating, and then you'll have another object. Okay. What I also like to do here is snap, enable grid snapping on or off. When this is enabled, snap ang motion sa aton game objects when we move it there. So snap siya and well, depende na siya sa increment or decrement of here. So in this case, that's by 0.5 ang snap niya, right? If we don't have snap, then we could do it more continuously, right? But I like it to be snap para may precision. And then we could duplicate this, continue duplicating this. Like so, so, and then maybe one more here. Yeah, something like that. Then maybe I could go to front view, click everything here, and then duplicate again, stack it up, stack it up, Excellent. So you have obstacles now already. This already has mesh collider as well. So if we bump into it, something might happen. Uh, what I also like to do to keep things organized is I click here sa hierarchy, and then I create empty. Create empty, this is just an empty na game object. So it has nothing, it has no mesh, it has no position. It has a position, but it has no mesh. It's not visible. I use this most of the time just for organization. So in this case, I'll say crates, group. So I'll drag it outside of the crate, and then I will um, click and hold shift to select all of the crates, and then just drag it inside the crate. And now it's sort of like now the parent of our crates now object. So if we collapse this, there, your crates are there. And if I click on crates and then move it, I can move them all at once. So let's see what happens when we hit play mode. It's just floating there, right? And then if we bump there, nothing happens. Why? Why does this happen? Nothing happens. We don't have rigid bodies. Okay. So let's enable rigid bodies for our player first. Rigid body. Take note, this is rigid body, not rigid body 2D, because we are doing a 3D environment. I'll take the mass of this car, do like 10. And then for the crates, I'll open this and then select all the crates, add a rigid body component, and that should be done. Okay, let's save and then run it again. There. If I bump on these crates, I expect na there. Physics is now affecting it. There, it falls to wherever. So you can do bulldozer simulator, bulldozer. If you fall around there, affected na siya by gravity. So it falls to the never-ending abyss. Okay. Yeah. So you could put more obstacles. You could duplicate that. You could put barrels. You could put rocks, boulders, etc. Important thing here is you have rigid body at least in one of the collision components, not components, collision participant. I don't know. The other thing that collides. Okay. In the previous example, may moving kita na obstacles, right? And I did this one, the prop barrier. So yeah, let's go to top view and then maybe move it around somewhere here. I'll add it here. I'll zoom in, and then maybe I'll make it -8. Then Z is around 50. That's pretty good. Y is so this one. So for us, in order for us to move this around, right? What do we want to do? Make another script for this one. So let's go to script. We want this to be moving around the x axis. And the previous examples, it goes like this, right? If it reaches a certain measure here, it goes back, and then goes back, goes back, goes back. So what I did there was I have a minimum and a maximum x coordinate. But yeah, let's create a script for this. C# script. I'll say a moving obstacle. Okay, and then just collapse the crates for now. This will be moving obstacle. And then just attach the script. And then we'll edit the script. Now for this, we want to move it in the x-axis, just back and forth, back and forth. And we need like a minimum x-axis and a maximum x coordinate rather. Minimum x coordinate, maximum x coordinate. So let's see, we want it to move around here at the end of the road. If we see that's -8 sa position, -8 in the x, and then sa here, positive x. So we could create variables for that. Let's open this with VS Code. I'll do a serialized field. Take note, not everything should be serialized, only the things that you want to be exposed sa inspector. So this is private float, min x. Let's just put it at 0 first, and then this is max x. Let's put it at 0. We also need another float. We'll call this move speed, right? And then let's have it at around 5 f for now. Now we could call in update. Now we could just translate. We could just do a translation. So we do. I'll make another vector 3 here. Vector 3 move distance is equal to move speed, right? Multiplied by time that delta time times we're moving in the x-axis. Actually, we're moving to the right, right? So vector 3 dot right, something like this. For now, we'll leave it at that, okay? And then we'll see what happens. We'll have this here. We'll separate our game mode. Para makita ang game mode here, we can also observe just this, sa scene mode. So if we click on play, oh, it's not moving. What's happening? We didn't translate, sorry. Transform dot translate, no, translate move distance. Sorry about that. Now it moves like that, very slowly. No? Moves like this, but it moves just never ending siya sa, sa right. Okay, we could change that. We could change that by having if else statements here. So I will actually, what I'll do is I'll have a direction na variable or a move direction, and I'll make it private here. We don't have to expose this to the inspector, so we could not, or we could make do with not serializing this. So I'll do private vector 3 move direction okay, and then we'll initialize this with vector 3 dot right. Okay. So initially move siya, right? And then we could have an if statement here, right? If our object goes to the max x, mabalik siya, right? If it goes beyond or min x, then ma-positive naman ang direction. Yeah. So if transform, so the position, right? We're getting the position on the x-axis. So position again, transform is this component, and the position is this na vector 3, right? So if the x component of that is greater than our max x, you could say that our move direction is not forward, but to the left. Okay. Else if our our position is less than our min x, okay, our move direction is right there. If it is not greater than maximum or not less than minimum, meaning it's still in transit. No? Haven't reached the minimum or maximum. So, mas stay lang siya in that direction. Okay? And here, so move distance, we'll edit instead of vector 3 right here, we could just multiply it with our move direction. There. And then we'll edit min x and max x sa inspector na. Okay? We'll go back here. So let's move it around here. Our minimum x is -8 as we determined earlier, and our max is 8. Save, and then play. There. So if it reaches max x, and if it reaches, wala pa siya rigid body, right? So if we actually move here, it's just gonna crash our car, like so. Yeah, yeah. So you could do multiple things, multiple moving objects with multiple with different speeds. No, for example, let's go back to our scene. Let's go back to our scene view. Moving obstacle here. We could do multiple or make multiple things like this. I'll move this a little backwards around 60 mark. Okay. Then I'll duplicate this. I'll put another one here where this one moves a little faster, say 8. And then I'll have another one here, maybe around here, which moves a little slower, 3, for example. And then I'll create another one. Now this one, gusto ko halfway lang siya. Halfway lang siya ma-move. So our max x is still 8, but our min x would be around here at around 0. Around there. So basta lang siya max x is 0. So you could configure it. Same script lang siya, but you could configure the properties through the serialized na fields. Okay? So let's click on play. Okay. Our car is a little slow. We could tweak that, no? Their serialized field. So if you see the other one moves a little faster and the other two moves very slowly. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. From here, you can add multiple obstacles that does like multiple things. Maybe a rotating obstacle, maybe a much faster, yeah, like a pendulum. Yeah, depends na sa inyong discarte or whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, for now, that's just it for the basics, right? We have player movement and we have rigid body, very simple rigid body. We have camera movement as well, no? Very few rigid body here and moving obstacles. Okay. Yeah. For now, take this example, and then maybe you could play around. No, think of what you can do with what's given to you. Okay. Our lecture ends here. Yes, I'll be uploading this to YouTube.